Hi everyone, today we're going to be making a sand terrarium in Procreate. And you may have made a real sand terrarium at a birthday party, carnival, festival. We used to make them on the boardwalk growing up. Similar to what's on the screen here. Benefit of doing it in Procreate is you can make it whatever you want and not have to worry about intricate details and how to make them out of sand. So we're going to start with a blank canvas in Procreate. I'm just going to hide that layer. And you want to pick a color that you want to be for your bowl or container. Now you can make this any shape you want. I'm going to make it like fishbowl shape. And so I forgot to add a layer. Make sure you are on a blank layer. I'm going to draw my bowl. I'm going to hold it. And then at the top, I'm just going to draw an oval shape here to make it look like it's open. And hold it so that Procreate cleans it up. I got a little bit over the edge there. I'm just going to erase that. Okay, so now I have my bowl. You don't want it to be a hairline. I want it to be a little bit thick, the outline, so that you can hide the actual sand drawing underneath. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to put that underneath. And now I have to decide what I'm going to do for this sand art. I'm going to make it kind of like an under the ocean scene or a fish tank scene. So I'm going to get a blue shade. And I'm going to make several kind of shades of blue or rows of blue. And every color you do, you want to have on its own layer. And you'll see why once we get to the part where we're going to add the texture of sand. So I'm going to draw that. I'm going to fill that in. I'm going to make another one. Change the shade of the blue. Make sure I'm on, yeah. Wasn't sure if I added a layer there or not. Now you can stack these layers or you can put each new one underneath the other. It's really up to you. I'll put another light one in here. Actually more of a grayer one, but that's okay. And I forgot to put that on a layer. So I'm going to start that one again. So that is always my biggest mistake, is I always forget to add new layers when I'm drawing something. And I realize when it's too late. So let's make one more here and then we'll do one more after that. Now you don't have to be doing this type of an image. You can do a sunset. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to go back to the original color for the top. And I'm just going to kind of close that in. And I think I forgot another layer again. Yep. Now the very top, I'm going to take a lighter shade and follow the shape. Again, add a layer. Wow. Making all kinds of mistakes today. I'm going to curve this to the shape of the bowl and fill that in, and we'll get to this later, but that's the top of the bowl. That's actually the top of the sand. If you were to look down into the tank, that's what you would see. But we'll take care of that one later. So now I have my background. I'm going to add some details. So I'm going to make another layer with a fish on it. And I'll add a layer of some seaweed and some rocks at the bottom. Kind of like multicolored gravel at the bottom of the fish tank. So this is going to be like a phony fish tank made out of sand with fish, which benefit of is you don't have to feed it. I'm just doing all these rocks on the same layer on purpose. This time I didn't actually forget a layer. But now I'm going to add a layer, and I'll stick a plant in here. And I'm going to do one last layer, put some bubbles. And on that same layer, I'm going to put an eye for the fish. Okay, so there's my sand design. Now, I'm going to go back to the bottom layer, the original one. And in my brushes, under elements, I'm going to go to driven snow. Driven snow, if you're doing a snow picture, is perfect for snow, but it's also perfect for sand. And on this layer, I'm going to select that color by touching and holding it, and I'm going to get a darker version of it. And I'm also going to tap that layer's thumbnail and turn on alpha lock. Alpha lock will prevent any of my drawing going outside the layer. So I'm tapping all over my iPad right now, but the only place that's getting paint or color in it is inside that layer because I locked that layer with alpha lock. And I'm going to take a lighter shade of this and throw it in there, and this is going to be like the grains of sand. Go a little lighter to get that sand texture and the just make it look more sand-like. And you're going to do this to every single layer in your image. So I'm going to go to layer 4, get a darker tone, and I forgot to turn alpha lock on. I'm forgetting to do a bunch of stuff today. I'm just going to erase what got out. So I'm going to put a darker shade in that layer. Get a lighter shade. And like I said, you're going to do this to every single layer in your picture, including the top, which is the top of the bowl, not just the top layer. So you do want texture in that top one also. So I'm going to do this, and I'll be back. Okay, so now I've got all my sand texture in there, and it's already looking like a terrarium, but we wanted to make it look a little more 3D, and there's a couple things we're going to do. First thing we're going to do is merge all of these layers together, except for that top one. So I'm going to take the top one and just drag it to the top so that I know that that's my top layer, and just double check, yeah. So I'm going to take my fingers, squeeze these layers together. So now everything is one layer. And I'm going to grab the arrow tool, and on the bottom of my screen, I'm going to tap warp. And warp lets you kind of, wherever you tap inside of this grid, you can drag around the screen. So I'm going to warp this. And I'm also going to pull it down a little bit. Don't worry about it if it gets out of your frame a little bit, out of your glass. But I'm going to warp it so it kind of has a more of a rounded look to it. Now, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to, but I'm trying to make it kind of conform to the shape of the container that it's in and look more rounded, like it's following the edge of the glass. Okay, I'm not going to worry about that edge. I'll adjust that edge in a minute where the gap is. Okay, that looks good. So let's go and adjust that edge. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to drag it down, put it on uniform now, and drag it down a little bit. And I'm going to go to warp and kind of pull it down a little bit. And just play with it. Until it's where I want it to be. Okay, perfect. I just noticed the little corner there, which I missed. So I'm going to pull that and get that. Okay. So now I'm going to go to the very top of my layers and add a layer. And we're going to add a little reflection. So I'm going to get white, change my brush back to my normal brush, which in my case, I use the brush pen or monoline under calligraphy. And on the bottom right, I'm going to kind of draw a crescent shape. It doesn't have to be neat because I'm going to blur it in a minute. And then opposite that corner, I'm going to do the same thing. Then I'm going to go to Gaussian blur, blur it, not to the point where it disappears, but blur it enough so it gets rid of the harsh edge, but it also makes it look like the glass is reflecting. And now I'm going to go to that top layer of my terrarium, and I'm going to get a dark shade of whatever color is in here. And I'm going to make my brush kind of transparent. And I'm just going to lightly go in, make my brush bigger, a little more transparent, and just add a little bit of a shadow along that edge. So I'm softly kind of putting that in there, just to make it look like it's a different part of the container. Put a little bit in the middle maybe. It's barely noticeable, but it's noticeable enough. Now, you can call this done as it is, but if you want to, in between that top layer and your glass, add another layer. You can add some plants coming out of it. So let me shrink this. I got a green. I'm gonna raise my opacity back up. I'm just gonna randomly put in some kind of grass-like plants that are coming out of the terrarium. And then I'm gonna lighten that a little bit and go along the edge of some of those, just to add some shadow and some more depth to it. So I'm gonna just, not perfectly, but just drawing right on top of it. And you can see I have the back of the glass container there. So I need to go into that glass layer, grab my eraser, and I'm going to erase the back edge of the aquarium or terrarium, wherever there's grass, so it looks like the grass is in front of it. And you can add as many plants as you want. They don't have to be green. You can make them any color you want. Or you can leave them out completely. Or you can draw like a whole plant or cactus coming out of it if you want. It doesn't just have to be little blades of grass. So there we go. Once again, you can call it stops here, or you can go for one more layer. So I'm going to go to my bottom layer, add a layer, drag this underneath. I'm going to get a dark shade. And I'm going to draw a shadow on the table, kind of an oval shape, because that's the shape of my container. And if it's closed in, you can just fill it in like that. I'm going to Gaussian blur it. And I'm also going to go to my layers, tap the N on that layer, and drag the opacity down a little bit so the shadow is not so dark. And there you go. Making a sand terrarium in Procreate. Hope you found this video useful. Appreciate liking, subscribing, all that stuff. And I'll see you next time.